Hello, I'm Shelby Britton, today's moderator for this fireside chat with Jari Carter, Chief Revenue Officer at WordPress.com VIP at Automatic, one of our esteemed ImageCon sponsors and longtime partner. Jari has led worldwide sales for Magento, founded a digital agency, an e-commerce company, and now leads marketing, sales, and partnerships for WordPress VIP. WordPress VIP and Cloudinary have teamed up over the last several years to provide customers with robust, really end-to-end content management with intelligently automated rich media and digital asset management. So today, also, I'm excited and honored to announce the upcoming release of Cloudinary's newest version of the WordPress plugin, which is version 3.0. It includes a completely new and innovative UI, as well as many new features, allowing users to publish experiences faster. For instance, WordPress customers will be able to use Cloudinary to optimize and deliver assets outside the media library in themes, subdomains, and more. So in this fireside session, and in the spirit of a fireside session, I have actually turned on my fireplace here in Denver, Colorado, because it's pretty chilly. So Jari has graciously agreed to share with us some trends and best practices for digital transformation as observed from the top brands using WordPress VIP. So Jari, I'm going to dive in and we'll get to our first question. We wanted to chat about the first topic. And really, it's all around the hyper acceleration of consumers' digital maturity recently. And that has pushed brands to grapple with stages of digital transformation they weren't yet planning to tackle. I mean, even manufacturing brands are accelerating their digital transformation journey. So will you share with us what the impact of all of this has been on your customers?
Yeah. First of all, hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks, Shelby, for having me, and to the Cloudinary team. I wish I could we could all be in person. I'm sure this sentiment has been probably active throughout the conference, but I just, doing these kinds of events makes me miss the fireside chats that we do in person. And speaking of which, I think, we're all still in the midst of a giant shift that's happening, and that it has been happening over the past year and a half. There's been a huge shift. Really, if you look back in 2019, Forrester did a study where they polled analysts, and they polled executives, and 85% of executives believed that digital was still a nice to have. Now, we all kind of laugh at that because, according to Forrester's Ted Skadler, his quote is, "Digital has been the only reasonable response to the COVID-19 crisis for companies." And we're seeing that play out in actual customer behavior. So 88% of buyers now research online before ever making a purchase. A more compelling fact is over 80% of buyers research your business online, digitally, in some sort of way before ever making contact with you. So, the companies that haven't really or aren't really making the shift into digital are just really being left behind. We're in such a, that word digital transformation used to be, I think, such a buzzword. And it was like the thing that everyone was talking about, no one was really doing. And now over the past couple of years, we've all just seen that the companies that have accelerated their digital focus have been the ones that have really been performing very well. And we see a lot of examples of that in our business, which I know we'll talk about, Shelby.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of surveys, I think mid-pandemic, I saw an analyst survey. They had surveyed C-level folks before the pandemic about their priorities, and experiences were like 8 out of 10. And mid-pandemic, they moved up to number 2. So to your point, like this just you've got to do it. You've got to focus on it.
Yeah, no, the exact imperative of digital we're seeing just we're seeing that this is shifting upwards in terms of exact priority to really have a strong digital presence and really create what it really is about, is creating a better customer experience digitally, for sure.
Right. Like you said, it's a digital first world, and really experiences have become where customers are won or lost. And the competition really now is around creating those captivating experiences and content. And it's pushing brands to these higher levels of experience innovation, if you will. Which kind of brings me to my next question is, what trends are you seeing with innovation that your customers are taking on these days?
Yeah, there's a few actually, I think that we're all seeing. One is, I think that this is an interesting trend that we're seeing in our customer base is the largest companies want to have a deeper understanding of the value of their content. So this, idea, this trend that you're hearing from Forrester and Gartner about Agile CMS is really playing out in the need that customers have, or the desire that they have to produce content, see market reaction to that content, and then iterate that content as needed. We actually acquired a company early this year called Parsley, which is a content analytics platform, which does exactly that. It's a way to help brands get a more sophisticated approach to understanding their content strategy and the content that's really driving the type of conversion that they want to see within their business. And we're seeing that side of our business is the fastest growing part of our business, because companies really have such a desire to not only produce more content, but also to measure the efficacy of that content. I would say a second thing we're seeing is, and this isn't a new exciting trend, but I think we're seeing it really push forward in a pandemic, post-pandemic world, is activating content in new and exciting ways. So, this idea of not just web and mobile, but also display, Internet of Things, a lot of different channels that companies are really considering. Just to give an example, if we helped Samsung with their Link Cloud hotel display application, which is built on our platform, which allows hotels to maintain their own content that they want to display on in-room TVs. And that gets to probably my third point, which is just this idea in content modularity. And a really sort of like this idea of like composable content, which allows companies to create content in sort of smaller bite sizes, and then in a block-based approach, and then put that content to the right places at the right times. This also, I'll share a quote from Gartner, and then I'll talk about this as a meta trend. But Gartner says, since its inception as a market category, WCM has mainly focused on a page-based paradigm, which is kind of the mobile web world that the mobile or web-first world that we come from. But modern CX imperatives demand more composable content that can be easily delivered in different combinations to different channels, devices, and audience. This is where I think headless is becoming also such a trend. And the idea that companies want deployment flexibility. And, there's so much debate, interestingly, of whether or not companies use a headless sort of approach as an option, or whether they go with a more traditional WCM or traditional content management. And we're seeing that the analysts are saying, and our customers are actually reiterating this, is that they want both. They want the option to have very traditional sort of web-based content management experiences, traditional content management experiences that they can deliver out to their main digital channels. And then they want headless as an option to really expand their marketing into this, modular content creation and new ways that they want to display and share their content. So anyway, that was a long answer, but those are some of the trends that we're seeing, and some of them have been around a while and they're just getting accelerated. But I think, I've been in content management, in and around content management since 2007, 2008. And it's so interesting to see, the trends that we were talking about in 2009, 2010, really starting to get deployed in mass in 2020 and 2021. So it's a really exciting time to see these trends that we've been talking about for so many years fully enabled
Right.
in the market.
Yeah, for sure. To see them actually come to fruition and being put into place is a really fun time to be a part of this space. And if I double click on when you're talking about channels and composable content, what I've seen, in my career being in this space also for a while, is that a lot of brands get stuck on those critical channels sometimes. Like they know they should maybe try some of the new emerging channels, and they want to be ambitious, but they get stuck. And, is the key really development flexibility, headless, this combination, composable content? What do you think are the big keys to helping brands really become and embrace omni-channel in a way that is consistent and makes sense for them and is not so scary?
Yeah, it's a good question. I may just take it up a level into like a couple of thematic things that I think we're seeing, at least with our customers. Is one, this idea of like content agility. The ability to create a lot of content is really a blocker. It's a challenge that a lot of our customers are facing. IDC recently interviewed one customer, and they shared this back in one of their reports where the customer said, and this will resonate, I think, with a lot of people in our audience today, where the customer said, making changes and creating new templates was prohibitively resource intensive and frustrating for business users, feeling locked into mediocre web experiences. Our CMS really held us back from doing anything creative or innovative. And I think that is something that we're seeing. A good example of this is Salesforce. So before the pandemic, Salesforce is a customer of ours. Before the pandemic, it was highly dependent on events. Like in-person live events was such a big part. All of us know Salesforce and the events and Dreamforce and the amazing event, that type of event that Salesforce will put on. But going into the pandemic, they really had to build up their digital experiences in a really rapid way. And one of the big needs that they had was really creating content. And they needed to activate more content creators to create more content so that, they could really start to fuel, their brand and their business growth as they went through the pandemic. So I think that is a good example of this, content agility need. Hachette Book Group is another great example. So Hachette, for those that don't know, Hachette is the largest publisher worldwide. I'm sorry, they're the largest in North America. They're the third largest book publisher in the world, and they really needed to create agility for the authors and folks that were promoting books. I think they released something like 2,400 new titles every year are released by the Hachette Book Group. And so they needed a way to create the agility to enable authors and content creators around these publishing teams to create content. So they adopted WordPress, gave access to all of their authors, all of their publishing teams to create content, and really just enabled so many more content creators. So this idea of just content agility and the ability to rapidly create content, putting content creation into more people's hands is such a thematic issue that a lot of customers are facing and really want to solve. I would say a second thing is increasing security demands. So I think with the world going very, again, now living in a digital first world, there have been major hacks in recent years that are focused on towards our customers, towards a lot of big companies. And this is an area of just a significant amount of risk. As an example, one of our customers, Merck, uses us for highly regulated content, disclosures, information around drugs. A lot of this information is highly sensitive and a liability concern and something that we've helped them with. FedRAMP is another certification. I think that a lot of companies, not just in the government space, but a lot of companies are really paying attention to what is a FedRAMP certification? What does that mean for us and our business? I would say, so that's not as interesting. I think, security, nobody really loves talking about compliance or security, but it is such a major challenge that I think companies have to face. The last one I'll talk about is just rapid spikes in traffic and fast growth in digital. And this is an uptown problem, but something we hear about so much in our set of customers is that their digital channels have exploded. And they become a victim of their own success to some degree as you start to create more content, start to put more out into the world, really seeing explosive web growth. And Gartner has said, I like this quote from Gartner, they said, the pandemic has elevated the importance of digital experiences and reignited the importance of digital transformation. Application leaders in charge of content management operations found themselves struggling with the scalability and uptime of their WCM systems, given the spikes in traffic and growing demand for the digital channel. This is a big reason why a lot of our customers come to us in the end is the fact that 42% of the web uses WordPress as a product, and we really put the enterprise scalable performant wrapper around the ease of use in the most popular CMS platform. So I'll stop there. That was a lot, Shelby, but I think it was important to highlight.
Yeah, I really, the agility piece really resonates with me. Seeing brands get stuck at certain stages of experience innovation and having the agility to have their tech stack give them the ability to have the agility to create any experience they can dream of, I think is so important to make sure you've got the right things in place to help you with that.
And I one thing I'll add to that is that not just sort of the right content management tools, but I think those tools are sort of us facing in the content world. But I think one thing that is so important that I talk about when I speak at these kinds of events is the really mapping out and understanding a customer journey in that experience and making sure that you really understand. And this is something we do at an exec level here, and I think should be happening at a senior level everywhere that content's being created, is really analyzing every step of the buyer journey, and from evaluation stage to purchase stage to customer support and satisfaction stage, really coming into that and understanding the content that needs to be delivered to remove the friction from each stage of the buyer journey is so important to that agility. And making sure that we just did this evaluation internally, and one of the things that we found is we needed a lot more top of the funnel content. We just didn't have top of funnel content that really demonstrated thought leadership or shared industry insights with customers. And we found that we were doing a lot more content creation, bottom of the funnel content. And then we had a lot of documentation for post-purchase. And so just really analyzing where content attaches to the customer journey and experience will be so valuable for companies that are really trying to create a better digital experience and trying to justify additional headcount or personnel in terms of just really creating a better customer journey through the whole process. Sorry, that's a bit of a digression, but it's something that I thought of and I really wanted to highlight.
I think it's super important because, if you think about the democratization of content, you were speaking to that a bit ago, and the amount of content being created today, all the content creators being involved, I would imagine if you didn't have a strategy planned out, like you just mentioned, for the customer journey and how all that content aligns, that could get very confusing and overwhelming and hard to manage. Do you have any other advice for, how to tie it all together, all this content with the strategy and the authors, all the pieces coming together?
No, I think taking a customer first or a customer centric view of that is really important. So I think just, tying all of that together, like one thing we really evaluate pretty regularly is how many touch points we have with customers or what their experience is like all the way through. Because I think as you look at the different, and then talking to customers and understanding what they like about the process, what they didn't like, they'll be very honest. And we try to have so much frequency of contact with people that not only purchased our product, but those that didn't, and understand why they didn't and what, where we fell down in the process and how we can make things better for them. I would say, my last thought on that though is really evaluating content as it relates to sort of the overall customer experience. One thing that a VP at Salesforce told us recently that I think is really compelling is, and the exact quote is, "Content is modern marketing, and now content is everyone's job." And I would say, like, if there was something to down and highlight and underline and take back as a real takeaway, content is modern marketing, and now content is everyone's job, is so powerful as, a rallying cry to this, how do we get our arms around digital experiences? And how do we make that easy for customers to have a better experience with us digitally?
Thank you, Jerry. I lost your audio for a second. Can you say one more thing?
Oh, can you hear me?
There we go. Okay, now I got you back.
Oh.
I just lost the last sentence, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm sure everybody else heard you. It's probably just me.
I don't know what happened, but yeah.
Well, I had one more question. Speaking of, exceptional digital experiences, are there any customers that you can point to? I know you pointed to a couple of them, but are there any other customers that you have that are really doing things exceptionally well that you wanted to point to before I get to some of these questions?
Yeah, I would say just thematically, because I'll keep with the customers that we've kind of talked about, but I definitely think, the Hachette example of taking content from what was a handful of folks in an organization down to, again, allowing content creators to bring to life 2,400 new titles every year, I think is a great example. It's just so much breadth and volume. Another good example along those lines is Capgemini, one of the world's largest global system integrators, went from when they transitioned over to our platform, they went from 7 webmasters and just a handful of content creators to over 1,400 content creators in the first year. And if I could, in keeping with the comment made by the Salesforce executive that content is modern marketing and content creation is everyone's job, I would really challenge companies to think about how easy is the content creation experience in your CMS experience, and who is enabled to create content, and is the technology blocking the great ideas that live within your company and the domain expertise from actually publishing and creating that content into the world. Because it's such, the content creation is such a important part of the digital transformation strategy. Now, I would also say in that this need to analyze content. So not just to create content, but to analyze really what's valuable. What content do your customers spend time in? What content is interesting to them? How are they engaging with your content? How are they using your content? Or is there content that you've placed in a really prominent position that they just don't care about? So that level of analysis, not just producing a lot of content, but that level of analysis and iteration, those two go hand in hand. And these are the companies that we're seeing just do a really, really good job of that. Really just thinking deeply and critically about how they're putting content into the world.
Yeah, I love that about making sure that you're listening to customers and taking their feedback and including them in the feedback loop of what content gets created and refined. And
Yeah, and the great thing about today's technology is we don't have to create a focus group for that. We can just see what they're doing, right? Like we don't have to gather around the 100 customers or prospects. We can just look at their digital footprint and the journey that they're taking, and seeing what they like, seeing where they spend time, seeing how engaged they are with content. It's so powerful. And we're seeing that the companies that are really taking advantage of the tools and technology in the market that allow that, both content creation and content analysis, are the ones that are taking off. It just is.
Right. Oh, well, that totally makes sense. And really what you're saying is we're all without excuse if we're not including our customers.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, if I was I'm going to take a stab at wrapping up some of your key takeaways, and you tell me if I got it, and you can add anything. But I think the first one was really about brands need a cohesive content strategy, and then it aligns to the business strategy, and looking at all those different levels and the customer journey. And number two, that authoring experiences with composable content is going to help brands expand really their experience innovation or expand to new channels. And then third one, I think, was really the right tech stack will help, or technology can help you kind of, especially for ambitious brands, adjust to market shifts, perhaps, or deliver more creative ideas, the ideas they've always wanted to deliver. What do you think? Top three?
I think it's great. Yeah, I think on that bottom one, on the last one you talked about, I think the way I would kind of think about that is there is, content creation. Now there's no technology limitations for content creation and analysis. So, if those are blockers, I would really recommend looking at the market and making shifts, because if your technology is blocking content creation, there's a better way for you. And if you don't have a way to deeply analyze your content, again, that exists. So now really it just turns into business process and change management, which really should be 80 to 90% of the challenge for customers. But if you can really isolate and focus on that, that's just a business problem to solve. The technology exists to support you solve that, which is really exciting.
Yep, that is very true. So let's get to some questions. We've got a couple. Have you seen any changes or trends in the amount or type of visual content your customers are using on their website or other channels?
Yeah, I would say yes. Digital visual content is becoming very popular. In fact, not only in our customers are they asking for more sort of digital asset management, digital asset curation, but we're actually seeing that in our own marketing, that digital assets are performing, visual assets are performing in marketing so much better than just sort of pure text-based assets. So, video is one that's particularly performing well for us. I think people are much more comfortable or interested in engaging that way now. We actually run a whole set of analysis around this, even internally. So I would be happy to chat with anybody offline. You can just reach me at Jari Carter on Twitter, or we can send out my contact information. But I'd be happy to engage with anyone on specifically digital and display content.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for offering that. Speaking of, I think this next question goes right into that. Where does your team research trends for digital experiences?
Yeah, so we have, I think we have to wrap after this one, but just very quickly, I'll say we have subscriptions with all the major analysts, so Forrester, Gartner, IDC. We get regular briefings and have regular sort of inquiries with those teams. Which is great, but the most interesting thing is just our customer conversations. We have close to 1,000 customers globally that are giving us a lot of feedback on the trends and what they're seeing in the market, how customers are reacting. And so that's our biggest source of just customer conversations, prospect conversations. Give us the biggest set of feedback of what we're seeing in the market.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jari. I really appreciate it. Everyone,
thank you so much, Shelby. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.